Good evening and welcome to the April 20th City Council meeting. If you join me for a moment of silence in the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, Mr. Snyder, roll call, please.
Volk.
I'm sorry, here.
Hellier.
Here.
Bermo. Here. Walter.
Here.
Lee.
Here. Okay, very good. Item number 3, citizens' comments. The opportunity for those to address council for up to 3 minutes about issues. If you're here for something that's on the agenda, typically we don't have public hearings, but I will open it up for public comment for an agenda item. Okay. Oh. Are you here about an issue on the agenda, or do you have something separate to talk about? Okay, no problem. Item 4, additional agenda information, Mr. Miller.
Mayor and Council, if it's okay with you, I'd propose that you switch items 7A and 7B. 7B is the awarding the bond sale. That should be a relatively quick discussion, and then we would go into 7A, which is the residential interim ordinance.
Yeah, okay. That's fine. Moving on to item 5. The first is a proclamation recognizing National Therapy Animal Day, and I'm going to have Councilmember Walter read it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Proclamation National Therapy Animal Day. Whereas Pet Partners has designated April 30th as National Therapy Animal Day, and whereas scientific research shows that interacting with therapy animals can reduce stress, relieve depression, slow heart rate, lower blood pressure, and strengthen the immune system. And whereas therapy animal teams in Lakeville play an essential role in improving human health and well-being through the human-animal bond. And whereas therapy animal teams interact with a variety of people in our community, including veterans, seniors, patients, students, and those approaching end of life. And whereas these exceptional therapy animals who partner with their human companions bring comfort and healing to those in need. And whereas we encourage more pet owners to consider becoming pet partners, volunteers to help our community by creating greater access to meaningful therapy animal visits. Now, therefore, the Lakeville City Council does hereby proclaim April 30th, 2026 as National Therapy Animal Day in the city of Lakeville, proclaimed this 20th day of April, 2026.
Very good. And Mary's here with Duke, right? Yeah. Did you want to say anything at all? You don't have to.
Duke Silver is a 6-year-old. I got him when he was a puppy, and we had to do about 2 years worth of training to get to animal therapy stage. So he loves going and visiting people and just being around town. Memory care facilities is really where the older crowd.
Very good. You want to take a quick picture?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I'll now, thank you, by the way. We'll move on to item B, proclamation for National Day of Prayer. And I think Ms. Deb Anderson is here to give a little update and background on our National Day of Prayer.
Well, thank you. I represent the task force in Lakeville, which is made up of 4 people. And this is an exciting year for the National Day of Prayer because our country is celebrating its 250th year. And as you look back on history, you can see that prayer was a part of our history. So anyway, just a little bit of background. Some of it's you heard before, but I have some new information this year.
Good.
So, yep, listen up to see if you can see what's new. So the National Day of Prayer Task Force has been organizing prayer events throughout the country. And the mission is to mobilize unified public prayer for America. The National Day of Prayer is a time for us to recall how our founding fathers sought the wisdom of God when faced with critical decisions. It stands as a call for us to humbly come before God, seeking His guidance for our leaders and His grace upon us as a people, just as our founding fathers did in the past. Every year, local, state, and federal observances are held throughout the country. So a little bit of history. July 20th of 1775, the First Continental Congress called for a National Day of Prayer and Fasting. And then in 1863, President Abraham Lincoln called for a National Day of Prayer. April 17th of 1952, President Harry Truman declared a National Day of Prayer and actually signed into law saying, in times of national crisis, when we are striving to strengthen the foundations of peace, we stand in special need of divine support. And that law was passed unanimously. So just in the past that we needed that is true yet today. In 1988, President Ronald Reagan signed into law the designation of the first Thursday in May as the annual observance. And then in 1998, President Clinton signed into law saying each year a proclamation designating the first Thursday in May as a National Day of Prayer. So here's the new part, a bunch of fun facts. There have been 143 national calls of prayer, humiliation, and fasting and thanksgiving by the president, going from 1789 all the way through 2014. I don't know why they quit counting after that, but... And then there have been 66 presidential proclamations for a day of prayer. Every president since 1952 has signed a National Day of Prayer proclamation. And tomorrow, our president, President Trump, will be part of an 8-day biblical scripture reading along with 500 people at the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C. And since we just had the exciting news of the Artemis II mission, this brings us back to the last mission. April of 1970, President Richard Nixon had the nation observe a day of prayer for the Apollo 13 astronauts. And I don't know if any of you had seen any of the astronauts' discussion afterward, but many of them were very moved watching the Earth from outer space and realizing that we do have a creator out there that takes care of us. And then September 11th, 2001 is a date ingrained in many of our history. President George W. Bush declared a day of prayer and also declared a day of prayer after Hurricane Katrina. And again, getting back to our president, on February 5th, just a short while ago, President Trump spoke at the 75th Annual National Prayer Breakfast in Washington, D.C., calling for a national jubilee of prayer, praise, thanksgiving on the National Mall. And that takes place just shortly after the National Day of Prayer on May 17th. So as America faces challenges in the economy from terrorism and natural disasters, one can gain inspiring faith from the leaders of our past. And our nation has always been strengthened by the faith of our people, and we are fortunate to live in a country where our Constitution protects our exercise of our religion. So the theme this year is Glorify God Among the Nations, Seeking Him in All Generations. So thank you for declaring May 7th, 2026 as National Day of Prayer for the City of Lakeville. And you all are invited to join us in front of City Hall at noon. Thank you.
For being here. Councilmember Volk, if you'd read the proclamation.
I can. The National Day of Prayer 2026. Whereas National Day of Prayer is an annual observance held on the first Thursday of May, inviting people of all faiths to pray for the nation. And whereas the National Day of Prayer Task Force, a non-sectarian group with no political affiliation, encourages citizens to pray for our leadership in America, especially in the areas of government, military, media, business, education, church, and family. Therefore, the City Council of the City of Lakeville does hereby proclaim Thursday, May 7th, 2026 shall be observed as the National Day of Prayer. Proclaim this day the 20th day of April, 2026.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Okay. We'll now move on to item C, a presentation from our liquor store director, Tana Wold.
Council, thank you for the opportunity to share the results of our Liquor Operations March fundraiser. So during the month of March, our liquor stores collected donations from our incredibly generous customers, totaling $29,835.60. These funds will directly support two invaluable organizations in our community, 360 Communities and the Open Door Pantry. Joining us tonight are representatives from both of these organizations. Jason Viana is here representing the Open Door, and Hannah Laniato is representing 360 Communities. So if either of you like to say a quick word.
Hi, good evening. I just want to say thank you so much for your support of all the nonprofits in Dakota County and in Lakeville. It's so important that we have a network for people who are seeking services. So thank you.
Thank you so much for continuing to feature our organizations during this campaign. As you know, between the two of us, we're building something that just isn't present in Lakeville, which is infrastructure for families that need help. And this support not only helps us put food into the hands of folks that need it. On any given month, you're helping us help over 23,000 people around Dakota County. Around 5,000 of those in Lakeville. You're helping us have mobile food access points in 5 different places in Lakeville. And as many of you know, during the summer, we work with the school district to deliver meals to 5 neighborhoods in Lakeville. Last summer, that was over 12,000 meals that students wouldn't have had access to otherwise. So we are grateful for featuring this, for acknowledging this, and for making Lakeville a place that everyone can thrive.
Council, any comments? Yeah, Joshua, Councilmember Lee.
Well, thank you both for being here and for what you do in the community. And thanks to the patrons of the liquor store. I'm not sure if this was a roundup campaign or a separate jar or something like that, but regardless of the strategy, I also want to thank the staff for being diligent in asking that question at every transaction, because that takes an extra second to do that, but looking at that total, that's an impactful number. So thanks to everybody involved in that. Appreciate it.
Yes. Anybody else? Well, I'll just, again, echo Councilmember Lee, thank you to the customers and the liquor store, but to both of you that represent your organizations, we continue to be grateful for your partnership, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mayor, real quick, I don't know if anybody from Just Serve is here tonight, but has got some publicity last month. We are named a Just Serve City, and it was a 40,000-pound donation. A semi-truck full of food was donated to the Open Door, and they are going to be sharing some of that with 360 Communities. And we purposely asked that be timed in the month of March to coincide with our food shelf, or our donations and from the liquor stores.
I did see Jennifer. Thank you for being here. Okay, we'll move on to item 6, our consent agenda. Any items you'd like to highlight, Mr. Miller?
Thank you, Mayor. 2 items tonight. Item 6F is a professional services agreement with Cooper Engineering. This will help design our freight rail storage facility that we've been working on. So it's just another step forward on going to that. That is being paid for through federal funds, and so we appreciate our federal delegation for fighting for those funds a couple years ago. And then item 6L is accepting the bid and awarding construction contract for East Community Park Phase 2. This will be the final project that was approved as part of the park bond referendum in 2021, and construction on that will begin this spring.
Okay, very good. Council, any items that you'd like to further discuss? If not, I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda. Councilmember Walter,
I move approval of the consent agenda.
is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the consent agenda passes. We'll now move on to item 7B, resolution authorizing issuance, award, and sale of 2026 GO bonds of $38.365 million. Finance director is here to tee this up for us. Good evening.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council. We did have very favorable bond results this morning at the sale, and we're able to recognize roughly $2 million of premium, so we're using that to reduce the par amount of the bonds. And we have Jessica Green, who's a managing director at Northland, our financial advisor, to give us the details of the results this morning.
Okay, very good. Ms. Green, good to see you again.
Evening.
As Julie just went over, we had a great sale this morning. Very impressive. 13 bids were received on the city's bonds this morning. So we do have a sales summary. The cover looks like this. I believe it was distributed this afternoon after the final numbers were compiled for the bond sale. The council, of course, is familiar with the projects that we are financing here today, those being the street and collector rehab projects for 2026. We also have improvements to Fire Station number 2, and then also some utility improvements as well. The finance plan here, so we've got a couple of different structures, 20 years on the CIP portion, which is related to Fire Station number 2, and then both the street and the utility portions are structured over 10 years. Security for the bonds, being that these are general obligation bonds, the city will pledge net revenues of both the water and the sewer utility funds, and then ad valorem taxes. One note, though, related to Fire Station number 2, the city does intend to cancel any levies related to that CIP portion and pay for that debt service with franchise fees. We did seek a rating for the issuance. The city's rating of AAA was affirmed, so congratulations to council on maintaining that very, very strong rating. Of course, you continue to score very well against Moody's rating methodology. Of course, they commented on the very strong financial position of the city. Local economy is strong and growing, and then your very strong liquidity and reserve position. So again, congratulations on that rating. Method of sale here today was competitive. Again, 13 bids received, with the low bid being Huntington Securities out of Chicago, Illinois. We have a final maturity here, February 1 of 2047, and then an optional call date beginning February 1 of 2034. So at that point, you can call the bonds in for savings or refunding, and you can do that in whole or in part. So once you hit that call date, you can call the bonds in at any date thereafter. And then on the bottom here, we've just got a quick comparison. So we did review the finance plan with the council back at the beginning of March, and we had a size of roughly $39,505,000. We were able to reduce that amount by about $1 million just with the bids related to the street and collector rehab projects. And then from there, we were also able to reduce the bond amount, as Julie mentioned, about $2 million in premium received today. So we were able to bump that par amount down to $36,145,000. True interest costs, very, very similar to what we had estimated in the finance plan. So 3.67 was what we were anticipating. 3.65 is where we ended up today. So not a huge difference, but an overall debt service, assuming that the bonds are outstanding for the life of the bonds, so full term, it's a savings of about $32,000. So we'll take it where we can get it. And then on the next page, you'll see the bid tab. So again, those 13 bids coming in, all really tight together. So 3.628 for Huntington, going down to Fidelity at the very bottom at 3.69, but all in that 3.6 range. So very strong again. And then you do have some sources and uses along with the debt service schedules. Of course, we'll prepare a final transcript after the closing of the bonds, and that is scheduled to occur on May 14th. With that, I would be happy to take any questions that the council may have.
Okay, very good. Council, any questions or comments? You know, I'm thrilled about the AAA rating again. I think, has it been 5 years now? Is it long? I don't even know. About that? That's pretty good. With that, council, I'll take a motion. Councilmember Bermel.
I move to approve a resolution authorizing issuance, awarding sale, prescribing the form and details, and providing for the payment of, would that be the correct amount, the 38,000, or would it be the 36,000?
36,000, or excuse me, 36,145,000.
$36,145,000 of general obligation bonds, Series 2026A.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Bermel,
Aye.
Walter,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Volk,
Aye.
Hellier.
Aye. Thank you very much to all of you for all of your work on that. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll now jump back to item A, residential interim ordinance. And I'll turn it over to Ms. Goodroad to kind of tee this up for us based on our work session conversation we had at our last meeting.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. City Council did discuss the draft interim ordinance at your April 9th work session. The intent of the ordinance is to provide a pause in the acceptance of new applications to allow the city time to study the impacts of potential legislation as well as the Metropolitan Council's Imagine 2050 regional planning document and its impact on the current 2040 comp plan. So while it would prevent new applications from being submitted for residential development, including preliminary plats, subdivisions, comp plan amendments, or rezonings for a period of up to a year. It could always be pulled closer or ended sooner than that. It does exempt a few things. Number one, subdivisions that already have preliminary plat approval, subdivision applications for preliminary plat and subsequent approvals that have been deemed complete and that are currently going through the process, and then properties that are currently undergoing the alternative urban area-wide review process. That's following the same logic as the bullet point above regarding subdivisions. There's a lot of investment that goes not only into a preliminary plat subdivision, but a lot of investment made by a developer going into and through the AUAR process. So of that, we do have several projects that are going through. You can see the different color codes, green. Those are some small project areas that we are currently reviewing, so you will still see in your upcoming agendas a few more preliminary plats because those projects have been deemed complete and they're going through our normal process. You can see the area under AUAR review and then lots that have preliminary plat awaiting final plat. In addition to that, we have many, many other final plats that have already been approved and preliminary plats that have been approved, totaling 675 single-family lots and 644 townhome lots, for a total of 1,319 lots still waiting to be constructed. So while this is a pause on accepting of new applications, it is not a stop in the development. Building permits will still be issued. Community needs to understand that we're not putting the brakes on development. We're still going to see a lot of home construction happen this year and next year. We will continue to work with developers on sketch plans. Those are not exempt from the ordinance, and we want to do that as we are working through our land use plan and figuring out what the 2050 land use plan looks like, considering all of the new rules by the Met Council. We'll continue to work with property owners and those developers as they wait through this process and get sketch plans ready so that they're ready to go when the moratorium is lifted. And that's all I've got. Can answer any questions you might have.
Council, any questions at this point? Okay, yeah, we had a pretty robust conversation. So this is not a public hearing, but I'll kind of treat it as a public comment. So if you have anything you'd like to share about what's proposed, you have up to 3 minutes. State your name and address for the record as well, please.
Mayor Hellerher and City Council members, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm here tonight as a Lakeville resident who cares deeply about the long-term planning, fairness, and livability of our community. I understand and support the city's desire to pause and reassess our growth zoning and infrastructure in light of continued rapid population growth, infrastructure expansion needs, uncertainty around potential state zoning changes. However, if the city adopts a housing moratorium, I strongly believe it should apply equally to all housing projects without exclusions. Allowing projects that are already submitted but not yet approved to move forward undermines the purpose of a moratorium. Exemptions create unequal treatment between developers, a rush to submit mentality, perceptions of favoritism, or insider advantage. From a resident's perspective, it feels unfair that projects filed just ahead of this proposal could bypass a pause that everyone else must observe. If the goal of the moratorium is to take a meaningful step back and reassess comprehensive planning and zoning, then all projects should pause so the city can evaluate density, location, infrastructure impacts, compatibility with neighboring uses. Allowing exempt projects to continue means decisions are still being made under the same planning rules the city is saying need review. A moratorium with exclusions risks eroding public trust and makes it harder for residents to believe the process is truly about good planning. The mayor highlighted the impressive growth since 2002, nearly 30,000 new residents, major expansions to roads, parks, public safety, and city services. As a resident, I ask, if infrastructure is already under strain, why should any new projects continue unchecked, simply because of timing? How can the city fully assess capacity and service impacts if development continues during the pause? The city has cited possible zoning changes at the Capitol as a reason for the moratorium. If the state law may significantly change local zoning authority, then it seems especially important that no projects lock in outdated rules before those changes are understood. A moratorium with exemptions risks leaving residents with long-lasting developments approved under standards the city may soon want or need to revise. Residents live with the long-term impacts of development: traffic, school capacity, infrastructure costs, not just during construction, but for decades. A comprehensive moratorium ensures equal treatment, a level playing field, decisions that prioritize community outcomes or project timelines. From a resident standpoint, fairness matters as much as speed. If the city believes a pause is necessary, then it should be clear, uniform, time-limited, outcome-driven. I would support a moratorium that pauses all projects and commits to transparent work plans, regular public updates, defined goals for zoning and comprehensive plan revisions. In closing, I ask the council to either apply the moratorium evenly to all housing projects or reconsider whether exemptions undermined its intent. A fair, comprehensive pause will better serve residents, strengthen public trust, and give the city the clarity it needs to plan responsibly for Lakeville's future. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Will you write down your address for Mr. Snyder on your way out? Just for reference, that was almost 5 minutes, just so if anybody's like thinking about, that's all right. Thinking about how long it is, a little bit shorter than that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Would you like me to start?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. All right. Hi, Mayor, council members. My name is Sunny Bowman. I am the owner of Dakota County Lumber Company. We're based out of Farmington, Minnesota. And I have had the pleasure, and my family has had the pleasure for the last 40 years to sell building materials to the people who have built this very community. I'm here tonight speaking on behalf of my builders and also on behalf of young families that are moving to Lakeville. As many of you know, homeownership is an important part of the American dream, right? It's the first step in building wealth in the property ladder. Already, homes being built in Lakeville are out of reach for first-time home buyers, and any pause to building and to the whole process, no matter what we tell ourselves about whether it's going to delay and if we're going to stop things or not stop things, any pause to the process will cause a rise in the cost of homes and will push homeownership further out of reach for young families. I'm on the board of my kids' Christian school, Christian Heritage Academy in Lakeville. We have a lot of young families that live outside of Lakeville that want to move into Lakeville to be closer to our community, closer to the school. It's a testament to what we've built here, and they're unable to do so because it's already too expensive. Pressing pause on building, pressing pause on new approvals has ramifications. This isn't really a decision about growth. It's a decision about who gets to live here and who has the opportunity to be part of our community. Additionally, talking to my builders, many of whom are small, family-owned. It's not the Pulte's and Lennars of the world. It's Peach Builders. It's Hebert Homes. It's Moderno. I don't want to speak for them, but what they have told me is that, you know, there's money involved in having contracts on land. There are holding costs. There are carrying costs. So there are actual real economic ramifications to having things delayed. It may be an irreparable blow to these small businesses that have their names on the boards at the hockey rink and on the fences at the baseball fields, that have been community members here for a long time and that have built the homes around us. I don't think that this council wants your political legacy to be one of driving up the cost of home ownership. I know that you are trying to do what's best for the community. I would just urge you that there is a way to do the planning that you are tasked with doing and have been supposed to be doing this whole time without pressing pause in a way that's damaging to your citizens and that drives up the cost of homeownership. Lakeville doesn't need to stop to stay strong. You can do this. You can make a plan. You can make sure that we have infrastructure, that we have roads, that we have schools that are able to support the growth of our community without pressing pause. If you vote no, you'll keep the door open for new families to move into this community that will become a vibrant and thriving part of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bowman. Any other comments?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council people. Thank you for this opportunity and for making the exception. The proposal of a moratorium is moving in the right direction. However, realistically, it's just a Band-Aid. For the city, the county, and the school district to realistically be able to put the appropriate plans in place, it's a 3 to 5 years just to catch up to where we're at today. Stick with your 2040 comprehensive plan. Use 2050 plan to do your strategic roadmap. Traditional development, the large big purple in the back left-hand corner there, that needs to be included in the moratorium. Otherwise, you're making an already situation that lacks infrastructure and school capacity worse before we have an opportunity to even catch up. Approving traditional development is misleading to the community and all of the comments that have been made. A one-year moratorium feels like a political strategy with elections coming up in November. Lakeville does not need to be the only answer to the 100,000 home shortages in Minnesota. Lakeville, the community, isn't interested in being recognized for the fastest growing city in the state or the most permits handed out or the Director of Development recognition, but rather a well thought out community growth that embraces our parks, our green space, our trees, our habitats, public safety, and roads to help support the growth we've already encountered. The city really should concentrate on the industrial growth. That will help our property taxes. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Loudon. Any other comments?
Evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Becky Wickscheid. I serve as the Government Affairs Director for the St. Paul Area Association of Realtors, also known as SPAR. SPAR represents more than 7,500 realtors across the East Metro, including, of course, Lakeville. Minnesota is obviously facing a housing affordability and inventory crisis. I know I'm preaching to the choir with that. But addressing it will require thoughtful, innovative solutions. And while local problems require local solutions, the proposed moratorium, we fear, will not help the city in its intended goals. SPAR encourages the city of Lakeville to consider alternatives to a proposed moratorium on new construction and urges the city to continue to allow responsible development while it evaluates Metropolitan Council policies and potential zoning changes. These efforts are not mutually exclusive, and maintaining housing growth is essential in supporting a healthy and accessible community. Overly restrictive regulations and added fees ultimately drive up housing costs and limit housing opportunity. Policies like the proposed moratorium constrain supply, worsen inventory shortages, and potentially make homes less attainable for residents at all price points. And this runs counter to the goal of increasing affordability and accessibility. A development moratorium would make it more expensive to both become a Lakeville resident and more expensive to remain one. By limiting new housing, the city risks increasing property tax pressure on existing homeowners when the cost of homeownership and living is already so high. Homeownership remains one of the most effective ways and pathways to building generational wealth. Actions that restrict housing opportunity make that pathway difficult for many families. We at SPAR are committed to being your partners as we work together to providing more opportunities for homeownership. And we also remain a leader in housing and development data. So please reach out if we can provide any of that information. Thank you for your consideration and your time.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Thank you, Mayor and council members. My name is Tony Kambata. My address is 7515 74th Street South, Cottage Grove, Minnesota. I'm not a resident, but I've got many friends and clients who are proud to call Lakeville their home. It was an aspiration for some of them to be here. You guys are, your school district is ranked 8th out of 362 districts in the state. Demand is not going to stop because housing permits stop. As a former city councilman and chair of Planning Commission for Cottage Grove, I've had to also meet these challenges, and I know how difficult this is for you, and I know that you guys take pride in your leadership. I know we advocate for the long-term health and prosperity of our communities. Development goes where development is welcome. That's a direct quote that we received from a corporate developer who brought over 2,000 jobs to Cottage Grove. And getting them there was maybe a 10-year process, planning and execution. And that harkens true for residential real estate and residential development as well. Moratorium on development now isn't going to affect what gets built next year. We've already heard that from other people. But what it does do is it stops people from planning to come here next year and the year after and the year after. So the long-term impact of this is not going to be felt next year. It'll be felt 2 or 3 or 4 years from now. And it's going to be hard to unwind the long-term effect of that. And I'm afraid that this moratorium may have a chilling effect on housing development for years to come and may cause irreparable harm. It may stifle housing. The lack of development may exacerbate housing affordability. It's going to restrict supply without addressing demand. Again, you guys have built a wonderful place that people want to come to, people want to be here, people want to raise their kids here. And that's not going to stop if you pass this interim ordinance. It's only going to hurt people who are already here, who are already struggling with affordability. I know that there are other more nuanced and administrative and zoning tools in your toolkit. You don't have to put a full stop on development. You can pump the brakes without signaling to developers and homeowners and everybody else who's worked so hard to invest in your community that you don't want them to be here. And I think that takes some hard choices and hard consideration. Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Nick Erickson. I'm Senior Director of Housing Policy for Housing First Minnesota. Our members' mission is homeownership opportunities for all Minnesotans, and it's that mission that brings me here today. I'm here to speak on behalf of our members and prospective homebuyers who will be impacted by this moratorium. A one-year halt in development when it is the state's top growth city will have impacts beyond simply Lakeville. Beyond that, it is irresponsible and unproductive in the midst of a housing crisis to pause development when you are such a top home building community for our state. Now, this is being framed as a breather, but we all know the elephant in the room is that this is directly because of pending legislation that expressly prohibits enactment of a moratorium related to the passage of the bill. A loophole is to pass a moratorium before the legislature takes action. And it's ironic because the policies that are enacted by this city are often cited by lawmakers as a reason, from adoption of fiscal zoning in the 1990s to aesthetic mandates, the city's garage requirements. These are what lawmakers are trying to prevent. And this is why they're seeking to enact some type of state-level action on housing. This is a problem that has grown beyond the reach of our 855 communities in the state to handle. It is even beyond a Minnesota crisis. This is part of a national conversation across the country when it comes to housing policy. Growth helps stabilize the tax base. It spreads the cost of infrastructure and services across all of your residents. When you pause growth, that demand, that need, that money, that doesn't go away. It's just spread across your existing residents. The appropriate thing to be to continue building as you are, and we respectfully request that you reject the moratorium and join us at the legislature with solutions that help all Minnesotans. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other comments?
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council.
I mean,
My name's Rick Ringeisen. I live at 20085 Italy Avenue, and I'm a lifelong resident. I served on the Envision Lakeville Task Force that concluded in August of 23 that the City Council adopted on December 18th, 2023. As a member of that task force, it was a large, diverse group. We did look at zoning. We looked at it very carefully. Why? Because we each looked at our neighborhoods and we looked at where the growth was going to take place and those impacts. I'm here tonight to talk about our growth, development, and zoning. You know, I remember very well Daryl Morey and his service to our community for 35 years. And I had a question, and the question in my mind was, how many times did Daryl depart from the comprehensive plan? So I did an AI search. AI is good, but it's not that good. But what it did tell me is that Daryl Morey did not have a record of allowing frequent or systematic departures from the comprehensive zoning plan. I'd be interested to know how many times he did. I'd also be very interested to know how many times that has happened since Daryl has left, because it feels different now. It feels as if Daryl worked for us as a city and the citizens, and sometimes it feels like we're encouraging development that doesn't fit our zoning plan. In some cases, many redraws of plans that don't fit the zoning plan. The zoning plan was developed for a reason, because of a vision that we had for our community and where we wanted it to go. I'm asking that you continue to follow the zoning for the city. You know, while that does feel different, we are experiencing prolific growth. That was just noted in the April 14th Minneapolis Star Tribune. It says we're now at 78,000. Which means we're a handful of years away from 90,000 at the current rate. That's an undue stress on our infrastructure, our schools, and our community. And I'm glad I'm on this side of the table and not on that side with you folks because of what's happening. But there's an old saying, build it and they will come. And that's exactly what happened. And that is stressing us, and it's stressing you. The moratorium is a tool, all right? You have people speaking for it and against it. What I want you to know is that there will be pent-up demand and there will be unintended consequences, some of which have been shared with you tonight. If the city does go into this moratorium, the time has to be used wisely to prepare for what's going to happen when we come out the other side. Now, the advantage is that you're going to be revisiting the comprehensive plan, and you're going to be able to get on the backside of that. But with what's happened in our community, I'm very concerned about how we're going to come out of the backside of that revision. Are we going to wholesale change the plans in our comp plan that we've looked at that was supposed to take us out to 2040? I hope not. I hope we look at the limited areas that we have left to develop in our city, because it's not about how fast we can fill it up, it's the quality in which we fill it up to do those things. And it's hard. With the revision, we need to be proactive, we need to stick to the plan, we need to stay on top of things, and we need to tell developers that build to suit the zone. Don't come in here with plans that don't fit. People here tonight are not against growth. In fact, we all moved to Lakeville because of the city we are and the city we're becoming. It's great to not have to cross the river. When I was in high school, we had to cross the river to go to McDonald's. There wasn't a date in town to be had other than a walk in the park, all right? That made it tough. But what we are in favor of building a community that we can all continue to be proud of. Thank you for your time. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I know I'm a frequent flyer, and I'm going to tell you that I appreciate your service more than you'll ever know. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment? Good evening.
I'm Bob Erickson, 19081 Indale Drive. Mayor Hellier, council members, City Administrator Justin Miller, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm here tonight as a Lakeville resident who cares deeply about the long-term planning, fairness, and livability of our community. I want you to know I understand and support the City Council's desire to pause and reassess our growth, zoning, and infrastructure. I know recently infrastructure has been part of your agenda, and it has challenged you, and you're meeting the challenge, in my opinion. And it speaks volumes to your ability to manage strategic growth. This evening, very quickly, I just want to make some observations about the proposed interim moratorium ordinance. Having experienced that in the 1990s and having the responsibility to implement the byproduct benefits, underlying benefits of the moratorium, I just have some detailed concerns about the ordinance as it currently exists. I apologize if my statement is inconsistent with maybe a more recent revision of the more recent ordinance document, which none of us have been able to obtain via the website. I don't think it's crashed, it's just not been able to give us the information that we were hoping for. That information is as follows. We are hopeful that the City Council would provide a detailed list in the form of exhibits for Section 3 in each category, 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'll give 4 as an example. It provides an exemption for a residential development undergoing an AUR, of which, to my knowledge, is only one. That's the 390-acre tradition development. There's also a reference in 3.2 for applications that have been deemed complete, or Section 3 unless a sketch plan has been submitted. We would expect and are hopeful that the City Council would give serious consideration to have exhibits as an attachment to the proposed interim moratorium ordinance, so that in realistic terms, it is enforceable. It's important to have a meaningful interim ordinance, of which most of us have reviewed, but it lacks specificity that is needed to ensure that the community, the builders, the residents, and the school district know exactly how many units are foreseen in the exemptions going forward. It's my understanding it's in excess of 1,400 units, which, based on recent data, is a 3 or 4 year supply of single-family homes. Again, absent that information, I am concerned, based on my knowledge with the interim moratorium state statute, might be unenforceable, and I think enforceability is important. I just want to say thank you for your courageous step forward in considering this interim moratorium ordinance, which I think is timely and necessary, and I compliment each one of you for your comments at the recent work session on this subject. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any further comments?
Stefan. I live at 10310 204th Street West. Was here during the Dwayne Zahn administration, and part of the reason, I think the entire reason that we're here complimenting each other on what a great town we have, is because Dwayne Zahn and the city council back then had the courage to stand up and say, time out, we're growing too fast. And I think a lot of people in here don't realize that he had the courage to stop the whole thing from getting out of control, and I think that's where we are now. So my compliments to you guys if you voted in.
Okay. Any further comment? Okay. A couple things I'll just address. I think there were some questions, and let me know, Ms. Goodrow, if you think I'm missing any, and you feel free to weigh in. So Ms. Goodrow did say there's 675 single-family lots, 644 townhome lots. There's this map, Mr. Erickson, but also LakevilleBusiness.com is a very specific place to find approved and proposed residential projects. And I believe everything that we're talking about should be found on there in GIS kind of style. So I think that's probably the best resource to make sure that we're following what we're kind of putting out there. Mr. Miller?
Yeah, just one other clarification, and we apologize, there was a website issue today, but the ordinance as proposed is up there now. You can see that language. The ordinance that was on earlier did have one error. The proposed ordinance does not include any sketch plans. So a sketch plan is what we refer to as something that's not an official submission. It's basically just an idea that a developer would submit, or a landowner, to get staff input. If we do have some of those are not considered a complete application. So if anybody has submitted a sketch plan that has not received preliminary plat approval or has not been deemed a complete application, which is a pretty detailed step, a sketch plan would not be exempt from any development. But like the mayor said, the highlighted sections on this map you see here are what would be exempt under the current ordinance.
Did you have one? Okay. Council, any comments, questions?
I just have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
So the green areas, Tina, the complete preliminary plat application, and the pink too. None of those, nothing's changed in the 2 weeks that we had this topics discussion.
Nope.
So nobody tried to sneak in because they thought they were hearing the discussion and thought, I've got to get in there.
Nope, no sneaking in. These are projects that we've been working on for a long time. Preliminary plat often is tied to different approvals. It takes about 120 days to get through the process. So it's only fair to allow those projects that have submitted and have been deemed complete to be allowed to continue.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay. Well, I'll add a few things because there's been a lot of conversation about this and the city's reaction to certain things, and I'll give my 2 cents. I think the first, why I support kind of the pause now, I think I'll give a really quick example. If you think about when the last time we did the comp plan, Cedar Avenue was going to have a transit line, for instance, and now it's not. So there's pretty significant zoning choices we made ahead of the 2040 plan that I would not make today because of that, as an example. And I think there's probably half a dozen other areas of the city I would think about that if projects came in, we wouldn't be able to deny because they would fit current zoning, and maybe they don't make sense based on some of those things that have happened. The other is, obviously, there's conversation about what's happening in the legislature. I've said that in meetings and in work sessions. For the community to understand, by way of background, after last legislative session, I met with 18 builders here at City Hall for almost 2 hours, and we got, probably 4 or 5 different suggestions on how Lakeville can improve our ordinances and our code to make things a little bit more affordable in their eyes, and what we can do to try to be better at fixing the housing crisis, as it's called at the legislature. I think we adopted 4 of the 5 recommendations. I'd have to double check for sure. And so we've done quite a bit working with builders, and I'm proud of that and continue to be proud of that. As part of all this discussion as well, this last week I spent a half hour on the phone with Representative Spencer Igo. He's an author of one of the bills, and we had a very fruitful conversation. I gave him our perspective as a city and what we felt were some reasonable compromises in his bill. There's 4 sections that I think make probably total sense, especially because we adopted them already a year ago. And I've talked to other mayors in the Twin Cities about that as well, so hopefully there'll be some sort of compromise that comes out of that. But there's been some positive response from the legislature, so I appreciate that. Other comments? If not, I'll take a motion on the ordinance. Councilmember Lee.
I do want to just continue with a few additional comments here. I think it is important to note that there are some conversations that are coming up that are going to even further be productive in figuring out what comes next for us. We're in the midst of planning our joint kickoff session with the Economic Development Committee, Finance Committee, and ourselves. Next week, we have a joint session with our school district, and all of those discussions are built on and founded on growth and what are our next steps as a city. Personally, I don't know that it will take a year moratorium to figure that out, but we're giving ourselves a runway to do that. To date, with our growth, which at the end of the day, we are talking about our neighbors. The folks that have come into this community over the last decade with this immense growth have benefited us tremendously. We've got a lot of very great businesses, new parks, systems because of that growth. But at the same time, I had a spirited conversation just this weekend with a resident who was talking about our taxes and our traffic and some of the concerns that come with growth. There are still rising taxes in our city because of the support. The housing costs have not gone down because of the additional housing. So there does need to be a conversation that continues out of this. And I appreciate that we have good connections with folks at the state because we can make some progress there. There are not going to be a lot of completely happy people walking out of this room because there are folks that want this to be applied to everything and stop right now, and there's folks that don't want this to stop at all. But I think the most fair pathway forward is to thread the needle a little bit with the applications that we've committed to so far, and give ourselves some breathing space to figure out what happens next. So that's what I'll add.
Councilor Walter?
Well, I appreciate everybody that's come and spoken on this tonight. A lot is made of the legislative issues that are happening surrounding the housing issue, and I just want to reiterate for me that that's not the driving force here. Last 2 years ago when I was campaigning, the most common thing I heard from residents was concern about the pace of growth here. We are having any discussions about the school districts. The concern about the rapid pace of growth comes out. And so I think this is just good policy separate from the discussions at the legislature, and I'm happy to go and ramble about those as well, because I hear a lot of discussion. The advocates pushing for bills in the legislature often cite Lakeville as the problem. Yet Lakeville has led the region, I think the state, since 2013, I believe. We've been in the top or first or second spot in the number of permits, at least in the suburbs. So no community has contributed more to the housing supply problem, to solving that problem, than the city of Lakeville with the units that we have added. And in many ways, I'd like those people at the state level talking about state solutions to this to be recognizing that, acknowledging that, thanking our residents that we are growing in this way. But instead we're demonized. And I appreciate that what the mayor did last year. We made some substantive changes to our ordinances in terms of building materials requirements and other, I think, very thoughtful changes that I think are appropriate. So I'm supportive of this. And I think it's interesting. I was noticing in the Star and Tribune this last week, they had one article about how, the pace of growth was horrible. We had one article about how we were going to, set the world on fire by stopping this. And I think some of the discussion here tonight has shown there's two sides to this argument, and we are trying to reach a happy medium, I think, that is good for the community of Lakeville. And I think this is, again, I don't want to minimize what we're doing tonight, but the reality is when you've got enough projects for 3 years worth of housing construction already approved, this really is a minor administrative change while we're regrouping and contemplating some changes. I appreciate what the mayor mentioned about the about the Cedar Avenue rapid transit bus thing that's no longer happening. So there's a lot that's happened there that has necessitated some of this, and I think the timing is appropriate for it. So I'll be voting yes.
Councilor Burnham?
Yeah, it's interesting because thank you for the comments tonight. As always, a full chambers with people coming up and speaking is it's good. This is local governance at its best. And your comments are all very good, but this has been said already. It's like, it's either too much or it's not enough, and there's just a spectrum here. And I agree, I mean, just with the number, for me, the number of permits that we have in the hopper that won't be affected are what make me comfortable supporting this, because I think it is an opportunity to take a breather. I don't know if there's any single one of us that hasn't heard comments from the community about pace of growth. And it's a constant theme, and it's always in the back of my mind. And I think this is a responsible way to take a breather and figure and plan that growth. There's all kinds of factors, the Met Council's planning, our planning, what's happening at the legislature. All of that, but the way I phrase it is there's just lots of moving parts. And when there's lots of moving parts, to me it pays to just take a breath and take a look at how things are going to shake out. And I think the timing is good. I think we have enough pending projects that I don't see the whole bottom falling out on our housing market and our housing prices. I think it's a good way to just see what the landscape looks like, and to address the pace of growth that we keep hearing about as a community, because the growth is healthy, it's good, it helps our tax base, but when it starts to stress the infrastructure that we have as a city, I think it's good to pay attention to that and notice that. So those are some thoughts on my support for this pause. I don't think that this is something, we haven't done this in a vacuum either. And so I think there's some good basis for it, and I support it.
Any other comments?
Mayor?
Yep.
Make a motion.
Okay.
I move to approve an ordinance temporarily prohibiting approval of certain residential development.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Lee,
Aye.
Walter,
Aye.
Bermal,
Aye.
Heller,
Aye.
Volk.
Aye.
Okay, very good. We'll move on to items 8 and 9, unfinished and new business. New business replaces what was traditionally our work sessions. So we're just going to take a quick 5-minute break, and then we will get into those items. You're all free to join us or not, depending on if you want, concerned about lodging tax ordinances and CDA housing.
also taking examples from other cities and what's all included. So some of the key points that we did is actually referencing which state statute the lodging tax is based off of. So added that into our ordinance. Did add the language for the short-term residential rentals. So that's also included in the lodging taxes. We also did put in, we specified that for our existing hotels, they all know this, but if they were to ever have a month of no sales, they still need to file a lodging tax return. So just beefing up our language and making sure that we're covering all of our bases. There were also, we didn't have any exceptions or exemptions noted in our ordinance, but by statute, there are properties or certain things that are exempted from the rentals that the lodging hotels submit. So we updated our form to be more comprehensive, more clear, and actually it's formula driven, so they can just put in their sales, they can put in their the exempt sales, the federal people that are staying or whatever at the hotels, and it calculates for them what their lodging tax is. So it gives the 3%. We also put language into that specified, what is the purpose of our lodging tax and why is it even a thing? Also stating too that the 3% lodging tax, 95% of that tax goes to our Lakeville Convention and Visitor Bureau. The city gets to keep 5% for administrative of tracking this. So all of that is also laid out in the ordinance. So more of a housekeeping thing. So I guess if there's any questions about why.
Okay. Yep, Councilman Bermel.
Just a quick question as I was reading through it, and it doesn't affect, how I see the ordinance or anything, but just especially for people that are going to be doing this short-term rental, what's the typical process for, I'm going to do a short-term rental on my house and now I have to pay city taxes. How does that look? What's the process like?
Well, technically, they should be registering with the state because there's also Minnesota sales tax that they should be paying in on those rentals as well. So it's all part of, it feeds off of that. So with the permitting that's required for the short-term rentals, they agree in that permitting, yes, we're going to do our due diligence and submit sales tax to the state. Lodging tax is another thing. So it's all these boxes to check that, I didn't realize that I had to do that. And some of the issues, and I noted it in the staff report, for a lot of some cities that are finding they're having so many Airbnbs or whatnot, the Airbnbs and the verbos will not remit lodging taxes to a city. The city has to sign up with the state. The state acts as the conduit. So when a Airbnb fills out their sales tax, they're filling out the sales tax that the state gets to keep. There's a lodging tax line right there, and all the money just goes up to the state. Then the state takes a little tiny percent and gives the cities back, here's what's remaining. And then we take that and give 95% to the Convention and Visitors Bureau. So,
yeah, I think so. For somebody that's just getting into this, a hotel's understandable; they're a business. They do this just as a matter of routine. But for somebody who is just going, I think it'd be really nice to rent out my house when I'm in Florida. How do they become aware of this? How do they learn about it?
That's a good question because, technically, it's a business, so they should be getting a Minnesota state ID to do this business.
Okay.
So it is a process.
Yeah, I guess, are we going to notify those who registered for the license?
To do that?
And that's how any of them that do the permitting for the short-term rentals, that's our ticket or our key to inform them, okay, this is the lodging tax piece that's also part of it. It will get tricky if we have a lot of Airbnbs, then the city will have to look at, okay, now should we be looking at having the state be the conduit for these payments? And it's all done through the sales tax e-permitting or e-file. So.
Okay. I appreciate that because it might not be really apparent for everybody that's going to get into the short-term rentals.
And we realize that. We're trying to make it as easy as possible in putting our form up on the city website. Typically, it's been a form that we just gave to the hotels, and they knew to submit it every month. So it's a process, and it's a educational thing too.
Okay. Any other? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to item B, Dakota County CDA proposal for housing within Dodd Commons, and what's the scientific name for the new fire station location?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. So Dodd Commons Plat was established very recently for one lot to create the new fire station. And then there's about 6.6 acre outlot, the property's outlined in red, for future development. And staff has been in discussions with Dakota County CDA about the potential housing development on the site. So all portion of it based on what's being proposed. So again, this is just a concept plan. And for transparency, they are fully aware of the moratorium. We called them when this popped up as something that council was seriously considering. They completely understand that. We are looking tonight for some feedback about this plan, if it's something that you like, and then we can go back and work with the CDA on a long-term purchase agreement. This is not in their schedule for any kind of construction within this next year. So just want to be fully transparent on that. But the proposal does include two concepts. On the south, a senior housing rental apartment buildings, 4 stories, 120 units on the southern portion. On the northern portion, they're proposing what could be family-style townhomes, or 27 units. Both would be rental. Both developments would be income restricted. The property is currently guided for commercial. However, it's a very tough site for commercial. Its access with all of the changes made to Dodd Boulevard make this a really tricky site for getting people in and out easily for commercial use. And so that is why we encouraged the CDA to look at this parcel. We know specifically we have a need and a long wait list for senior rental housing. I suspect there's probably an equally long wait list for families looking for affordable rental in the townhomes style. But without further ado, I will introduce Carrie Gill, the Deputy Executive Director of the CDA. She can make some additional comments, and then we're just looking for your feedback.
Sorry, one quick question for you. So on either of these kind of parcels, I know because at one point we had talked about commercial and some mixed use. Is there, because we control the site, is there, I mean, obviously, senior stuff we've been talking about for a long time. I really interested in that. Is there ability to try to put out like an RFP potentially to say, hey, we're interested in maybe some mixed use commercial and residential together? Is that
it's certainly
so that'd
an
be
option.
just something to kind of talk about because we have some time. So anyway,
It's certainly an option.
okay, sorry. Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. I apologize. My name is Carrie Gill with the CDA, and I apologize. I'm just getting over laryngitis. I thought my voice would be better this week than last week, but hopefully you can hear me. Let me know if you can't. As Ms. Goodroad said, you know, the CDA staff has been talking with city staff since maybe late in 2025 about this parcel and the land that will be left after the fire station is platted. And so we looked at it primarily as a senior housing site initially, and staff was interested in seeing that more in the middle portion of the site. So that's what's in the sketch plan that we've provided. The staff has also indicated that a new access road will go through, kind of splitting that parcel in half. And so then there was discussion, if the CDA did buy the whole parcel, what would we put on the northern piece? It's a fairly small piece for really, you know, many kinds of housing, but we would do, if we were to acquire, we would probably do around 25 to 27 family townhomes there. So the purpose in coming here tonight, we have not had a chance to talk about the family site with our board yet. We're actually having this discussion tomorrow night with the CDA board. We have talked previously about the senior housing. So that was kind of the initial part, was the senior housing, and then there would potentially be the room to do the family housing. So, you know, we're interested in finding out if there's an interest from the council, or if you'd prefer to do an RFP first before committing to something, or if you'd prefer to just have us look at the senior housing now. And then we will discuss this further with our board tomorrow night. If there was an interest in working together, the CDA does pay appraised value for property. So if we were going to go next steps, we would get an appraisal and make an offer. The CDA board would have to approve the acquisition, and the city council would have to approve the sale. So it still wouldn't be a done deal even at that point until both sides approved that. So it was mostly just kind of finding out if there's interest in having the CDA here, if you'd prefer to go out and do an RFP before committing to something. So that's kind of where we are.
Okay. And so Commissioner Holberg not only is a Dakota County Commissioner, but she also gets to have a seat on the CDA because they double up just like us. So I don't know if you wanted to weigh in at all.
I would. Thank you, Mayor and council members. I'd just like to clarify the board is just beginning a process to evaluate where we want to go with family townhomes in the county. As you're aware, there's LAHA dollars. Things have changed in the last couple of years. We are evaluating our current portfolio for its sustainability, for upkeep. Some of our developments are 20, 25 years old and are requiring major investments for upkeep. So we have some discussion at the county board as far as where we are going to go next, both in the program and in communities. What I would say is that we always like to be partners. We don't, come into a community and propose something that the council doesn't want or hasn't expressed interest in. Your moratorium tonight is probably perfect timing for giving us a little bit of time to sort out our program. My understanding is this property is a little smaller than we generally use for these type of developments, and so I think the timing is good as to get some initial feedback and what you're most interested, or if you need additional time as you go through this moratorium process to decide what you think a good use for this property may or may not be as you move forward. I think we can, take that time as well. So whatever direction you're prepared for tonight is great, but we're not in a position to move quickly. And so if you need to take some time, we're good with that as well.
I have a question, and it's not necessarily for Ms. Holberg, but is the senior, the proposed plan with the senior housing, is it contingent on the townhouses, or can we consider it separate?
It will be two separate parcels, and so our original interest in the site was for senior housing. So we could absolutely just look at the senior housing site. I think the road will sort of dictate where the parcel line ends up. We'd have to work with staff a little bit more on fine-tuning that road alignment in the parcel. But we could just look at the senior site now too and leave the other one. And if nothing happens down the road, we could look at it at a future date as well. And as Commissioner Holberg said, we would be doing this for land banking for like future development. We have a couple of we have the ability to do about one project a year. We work throughout Dakota County. We have a couple of other cities we're already working with. It's definitely for future acquisition. We like to find good sites and have them available when the time is ready. But yeah, it's more for future development. But we could definitely look at just the senior parcel if that's preferred.
I don't have enough information on clientele and being close to commercial and the location itself. So to have it be, I don't know what the right word is, subsidized housing in that location. The senior center or the senior apartments, et cetera, I don't have any issues with it because we need those in Lakeville. I would like to slow up a little bit on the townhouses.
We can do whatever. Yeah.
Mayor and Councilmember Volk, we would be happy to provide the city council with a list of the current properties, what our waiting lists are on the Lakeville properties versus other areas. They're going to be getting all that information for us as a CDA board and to share that with you so you'd have a clearer picture of what needs are and are not being met in the type of product that we like to collaborate with our cities to build in Dakota County, if that'll help in the process.
Joshua, Councilmember Lee?
Well, first of all, just to be clear, both would be subsidized housing, regardless of if they're senior or family. That's right. Okay.
But there's an age difference in the clientele
Sure.
and a mobility difference.
I think even just with the conversation we had earlier today, we know that demand for affordable housing is high. And so our strategy has been to have kind of the scatter approach to where CDA housing is in multiple places around the city. So, from a kind of a sketch plan here, I think this could certainly be a viable use of this property. So I'd be in favor of looking at it. I do, though, know of at least one group that was looking at this for a destination entertainment facility. And so I don't know if that is still viable or if they moved somewhere else, but
On the northern parcel?
on the northern part of that. So to the point about RFPs and just seeing what interest is there, I would be interested in kind of seeing what's out there to maintain the commercial, if at all possible, even though we know this is a pretty restrictive site when it comes to traditional retail.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, Councilmember Berman.
And looking at the plan, it's, to me, I looked at it and I'm going, okay, this fits housing needs that we have. And so, I'm supportive of the concept here. I too, though, would love to see some kind of at least examination of mixed use for that northern part. See what could possibly happen in terms of mixed use. But I think the housing and the fact that it is housing that's going to meet a need that we have in our community and in the county in general, I think I'm supportive of that. And I understand that this is just a concept right now, but the senior housing is definitely needed. And the lower income housing is something that, we've done. I think the strategy that we've had, Councilmember Lee talked about it, is we've never put this all in one place. We've kind of had it throughout the city, and this makes sense to me. But I too would be interested in seeing what the full range of possibilities are for that northern part.
Yeah, I would say, my take on the senior is I have this theory based on past conversations with the CDA that building a senior apartment is the best way to promote NOAA, which is naturally occurring affordable housing. Because if you are, in theory, a senior that can qualify for an apartment, you probably live in another place that somebody can buy at an affordable rate and promote homeownership. So in my theory, if we can do that and help promote a place for somebody to downsize into, that, because sure it's different, but the last presentation I went to the CDA, there are 1,000 seniors in Dakota County on waiting lists for apartments, and I'm sure it's grown since then. I don't know if you know off the top of your head.
Opposed to making it, because new people become aware of it. So, yeah, we do have a very long waiting list throughout the county and Lakeville in particular for both our senior and workforce. But the senior housing, I know we have the senior building that's at Crossroads Commons, just on the other side of Cedar, and that's been a very popular building, long waiting lists. And this is not that far away from there, so we think it's an ideal location for senior housing.
Thank you.
And I think I would just say, I'm interested to hear what the county does on their study on the future of their townhome product. I do know, just for reference, the county has purchased was it Habitat owns some houses or vice versa. There's been a few properties in the city that have kind of changed ownership, but have kind of been turned over, and, you know, they were kind of in tough shape. So we've seen that, which is good. But, you know, I think in our conversation of our moratorium, one of the things I want to look at is to make sure that, you know, when we're converting commercial land, we're not also increasing burden on the schools. That's a thing that I continue to hear is say, you know, commercial, there's no one in the commercial building that's going to school, right? So they're paying property tax to schools, but they're not going to the schools. So I have that concern when we convert commercial property to residential. So the senior stuff makes total sense, and then we'll just have to work through the northern parcel. Councilmember Walter?
I don't have a lot new to say. As you all know, I'm kind of loath to taking commercial property, commercially zoned land off the rolls, but I do, for exactly what you said, that pipeline, the naturally occurring affordable housing concept, and you know, CDA does some good products too. So I love the senior housing piece of it, and I think I'm echoing what you've all said on the northern piece. That I think we need to explore the commercial options there first. So.
And Commissioner, just since you're here, I just want to make sure with whatever goes in there, there are businesses east of this property that are worried about their access once this parcel gets developed. And so ensuring that whatever's coming off of Dodd is a full access for those businesses that may have their access cut off on Cedar. So I know that that's part of the forethought of development here to change that access point off the Cedar.
Temporary?
That's a temporary access off of Cedar. And so I just want to make sure that we're thinking about the access off of Dodd then to make sure that it's not divided or there's no full access. So just personal privilege since you were here. Appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor and Councilmember Lee, I started on the Planning Commission in the city in 1989. I'm well aware of accesses, redevelopment needs. As always, the CDA will work with the city on any project to make sure that everybody's good with the plans and that it's going to work with our neighbors as well. We're good neighbors.
Thank you. Good partners too. Okay. I think this is a good start. We'll kind of work through with you.
I think it's a wonderful synergy between the fire station and the senior population. We envision the firefighters maybe getting some fresh baked cookies at the holidays, or we think that there could be some really nice synergy there. So
well, we'll really shorten up the fall call time, so we get to drive down the Chiefs' numbers on the distance. Thank you guys for being here. Appreciate it. I don't know, Ms. Goodrow, do you have anything to? We're good. Okay, thank you guys. Moving on to council or committee updates. Anybody you want to share? Okay. Lastly, announcements are we are meeting actually next Monday night here at City Hall for a special city council meeting with the ISD 194 school board, and then our next city council meeting is May 4th back here at City Hall. And with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you.